Hi, and welcome to Bold and Blissful Women, where we help you connect with your feminine essence to create the extraordinary life and love you desire. Today we have Debra Smouse. She's an author and life coach, and she's going to be talking to us today on time management, right? And I would love for you to
Right.
introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Debras Smouse. As she mentioned, I'm a life coach and an author. And in fact, my book is available this week, my first book. I live in the great state of Ohio after spending most of my life in the southern part of the United States in Texas. And I believe that every day we need to live it to the fullest because the daily life is what makes up the things that we're really going to remember. It's not those big moments. And so I'm all about creating a daily life that you love, one that feels loving and nourishing. And to do that, we have to have some compassionate discipline and manage our time.
Compassion and discipline. I love that. Can you share a little bit with us, what are those aspects, that a woman should have to have a daily life that she loves?
Right. Well, first of all, it does begin with compassion and discipline because, you can't say, I'm only going to do things that follow my bliss. Because if you only follow your bliss, then there will never be clean dishes. There will never be clean laundry. It's that sort of stuff. And so it's really about what are your standards. I like to start with what are your standards for living. So, if you like to line out what are my non-negotiable minimum standards for living a life that I love and write those down. So like for me every day, it's like, even though I work from home, I put on real clothes every day. I don't run around in my pajamas. It's one of my non-negotiable standards, even on the crappiest of days. And you lay those out and you apply, again, that compassionate discipline with you say, I want to do things that nourish me, that feel good, follow my pleasure, because I think too often women deny ourselves pleasures, like even small pleasures. And so you want to follow that pleasure, but you want to do it in a way that doesn't give in to that inner 2-year-old. I mean, you don't want to be a dictator in your life and say, you must do all these things. But you also can't give in to that 2-year-old that wants to twirl around in a tutu all day and watch TV and not do any work. So by setting those standards for your life, you get to say, okay, so what are my standards? Like for me, for example, one of my non-negotiable standards is I don't like to get up to dishes in the sink. It just makes me cranky. And so that means that every night before we go to bed, I have to make sure everything's in the dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
So that's compassionate discipline in a nutshell. Beautiful. And the other thing I think we women need is we need routines. You hear the word routine and you think, oh, that's so stiff. That sounds so male. Routine, discipline. But routines are really created every day. Whether you think you have routines or not, you do.
Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, I mean, you get in the shower every day, right? So when you get in the shower, you follow the same routine of washing your hair, washing your body, shaving your legs or whatever. And you probably do it in the exact same order every time, right? So you don't forget conditioner or whatever. That's a routine. So if you're mindful about your routines and say, what do I need so that I get out of the door with more ease? What do I need so that when I go to bed, I'm not waking up 2 o'clock in the morning going, oh my God, did I remember to do that? Those are routines. So if you can set yourself up with what I call the parentheses around your day and really write down, like, what do I need in the mornings so that I can have a smooth start to the day so it can feel orderly without having to do a lot of hard work. What would that mean? So usually it starts in the evening. That's the end, that evening parenthesis of the day. But usually our evenings kind of set the tone for the next day. So things like picking out what you're going to wear the next day, putting your purse and your keys in the same spot every night before you walk out the door so that if you do happen to get up late, you're not rushing around looking for things. Or if you get up, you can take that leisurely time to sit and enjoy your breakfast, maybe read something motivational or inspiring before you head off into your day. But if you're not set up the night before, makes it feel tighter, more restrictive. And so by laying those little pieces of your day out, that morning and that evening time, it allows you to really have control of your time and use it in a way that you most want to use it. And that is like doing things that nourish you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Is there a way for a woman that, wants to have that sort of balance? Like I love that you mentioned at least like one question where it was like, what can I do to nourish me? What can I do so I can feel more at ease? Are there any more questions that a woman should ask herself in order to like create her schedule or, in terms of time management?
Right. At night, I like to ask, what was I most grateful for today? I kind of like to at least catalog that in my mind. I mean, gratitude, writing down our gratitude really does help us rewire our brains. It's a scientific fact of our thoughts go to those neural pathways it's used to going to. Mm-hmm. So gratitude kind of helps rewire our thoughts to go to the more positive. But every night I think you should say, what was I most grateful for today? What is the one thing I can do before I go to bed that's going to allow me to feel successful in the morning? What is the one thing I need to do tonight before I get into bed so that I don't worry? Because I think we worry about little things and it really affects our sleep and it affects the quality of our sleep. So, and then what can I do so that I begin the day with ease and grace? What can I do tonight to do that? And in the morning, my questions are, what can I do before I walk out the door that's going to make me feel good when I come home? And so for me, one of those things is like making the bed. So I think that we should make our bed every morning, because if you walk in from the day, even if you work from home and you walk past your bedroom and the covers are still a tangled mess, you feel messy. If you make your bed, even if you just pull up the covers and just make them look neat, you don't have to do the hospital tuck, but even if you just make it look neat, it's like you've closed out the morning, you started that day fresh. Same thing with, don't leave dirty dishes all over your kitchen. Don't leave coffee cups in your sink. One of the things I do, I don't like dishes in the sink, is as the coffee brews in the morning, I unload the dishwasher and I race it. I race the coffee pot brewing to get all the dishes put away. So then when I have my coffee and I have my breakfast, and my partner goes off to work, I can put his lunch together for him and send him out the door and have my coffee and in the dishwasher, so that anytime I go into the kitchen, there's not a mess waiting for me. And that makes me feel loved. That makes me feel nourished. It reminds me that I matter, that those little details matter. And so that's another question to ask. What little things can I do to remind myself that my desires matter?
Yes.
And then another question I like to ask is, what one little thing can I do for my partner, my child, my mom, to make them feel loved? And in our house, I make my partner's lunch every day. When we get up in the morning, he gets in the shower, I go to the kitchen, I raise the coffee pot to put the dishes away, and I make his lunch. And so that when he walks out the door, he has a lunch. So all day, anytime he opens his lunchbox to get his breakfast or to get out some juice or to get a sandwich, he knows that I was thinking enough about him that I took that time to nourish him too. And so it sets you up for that tone of, what little thing can I do for someone else to remind them that I love them and that they are valuable to me? And I think that makes us feel more valued.
Right. And I just want to emphasize that I love what you're bringing up to the table. And it's all about doing everything that you have to do for yourself and for others because you're coming at it from a place of love. Right?
Right.
That's the most important
It's
thing.
not out of obligation. Anytime my partner and I may have a little tiff, and we rarely fight, but I always remind myself, I am here in this relationship by choice, and I do nothing out of obligation. Everything I do is a choice, and I make those choices out of love.
What happens when you say no from a place of love? I know a lot of women that sometimes, they have their calendars full and they just look at their calendar. It feels like a battlefield, right? Because there's so much things to do. They don't know how to say no. How can you start to say no in a way that feels good to you so you honor yourself?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is you need to take a good hard look at that calendar and see what can go away. What really are you doing that isn't, you know, again, you don't want to give into that inner 2-year-old and say, I'm not going to do any of the things I don't like to do, but what can you ditch from your schedule? What can you lose? Because I'm convinced that we do too much. We demand too much of ourselves. And so when we are in that mode of constantly being busy, we have no way to say no to anything because we say, well, just add it to the list. Just keep adding it to the list. Keep doing more, doing more. Because the problem with being busy is we believe that if we're busy, that we will prove that we are worth being loved. But the thing is we don't feel loved because we're tired. We don't feel nourished because we're exhausted. And so the first thing I would say is, what can you delete from your calendar? What can go away? What really isn't necessary? What committees am I on that aren't serving me? What activities are my kids doing that's driving me crazy? I mean, I think our kids are so overscheduled these days. And I advise my clients that have children is don't involve your children in more than 2 extracurricular activities at a time. Because what's going to happen is you are the one that's spent driving them back and forth and to and fro, and it fractures family time. And it also doesn't allow children to be children. If every moment of your child's day is scheduled with extracurricular activities, then they never get to learn how to entertain themselves. They don't get to get quiet. We forget that our children need quiet and downtime too, just like we do, especially those introverts. I mean, this last weekend we were at a holiday, family gathering, and John has a really big family, and there were 5 kids. Everyone's had kids. Some have had children. Some of those kids have had children, and the youngest of the boys is 4 of the grandkids. And Friday, he took his iPad and went to another room, shut the door, because he needed the downtime. He was overwhelmed with people. He just needed to be alone a little bit. And I think we forget that our children need that. Our children need to be able to go to their rooms and read a book or play with their blocks or just sit and color. And we need that too. We need that downtime to sit and relax and read a book, or not binge on Netflix, but watch one show we really enjoy. Because binging on a TV show is another way we kind of numb ourselves and keep ourselves from thinking and being involved in our own lives. But choosing to watch a particular show we really enjoy, that's another kind of nourishment. So you need to make sure that your calendar has space for that. And I call it white space. So look at your lists and look at, how everything is during a day. Imagine it that way. And if there is no white space in your week, stuff has to go. Because you're always going to be tired. And that's the other thing. We skip sleep. And our bodies and our minds need rest. It's when what they've discovered on the sleep research is that when we sleep, our short-term memory, the little things that happen to us today, have an opportunity to stitch together with our long-term memory. But it needs time to do that. And if we don't allow ourselves enough sleep, then our memories don't get to merge in the right way. That's why we become forgetful. And so you have a really great day, you skip your sleep, and it's hard to draw up on those details that make you smile when you're looking back at your life. Because you've rushed past them, you haven't allowed your body and mind enough sleep to really record those memories for the long-term part of your memory.
Thank you. That's a beautiful thing, right? I would like to talk a little bit more on, this process or, downtime as you were calling it, and how to add it in to your calendar. Sometimes what happens is that you see so many different things on the outside, like, on the world outside. Like you wake up and you want to look at your cell phone because, you have so many different things. And it's just the way that you're wired. But I personally believe that that just puts you in a very anxious, position as soon as you wake up, because you feel that you have to deliver or perform, but you're not doing it from a place of love. So can you talk a little bit about that downtime, like in the morning or at night? Like,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think we need downtime at both sides of the day. And the first thing, again, it starts in the evening. Because if you don't go to bed early enough to get enough sleep for your body, and the average adult woman needs 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night, minimally. And that's not average per night in a week, meaning you sleep 12 hours on the weekend and only get 5 hours a night. That's average per night. And so if you begin going to bed when your body is tired, then you can begin to get up a little earlier so that you have maybe a half-hour cushion in your day before you feel like you have to rush off. Because a lot of people, it's really easy to say, okay, I have to be at work at 8. It means I need to leave the house at 7:30. It takes me 30 minutes to get ready. That means I need to get in the shower by 7. So I'll get up at 6:45. Well, getting up at 6:45, you hit the snooze button one time, you're already in a rush. You're already crunched. You don't have time for breakfast unless you quit and go. But if you were to get up at 6, then you could get up, have your coffee, do a little reading, maybe write in your journal, still get in the shower about 6:30, 6:45, and not rush out the door. So it starts in the evening by allowing yourself enough time for sleep, and then getting up about a half hour before you normally would, and do something that nourishes your soul. For me, it's my coffee and my journal and whatever my morning read. I was talking to my sister recently. Actually, she texted me early one morning. She says, "Oh, I just love this new devotional book I'm reading." And she does the same thing. She gets up and she gets a devotional that she is loving and reads it and thinks about the Bible that they're talking about, or the piece of living that they're talking about, and has her coffee with it before she gets in the shower and gets out. And she's a very busy woman. I mean, she's a traveling salesperson. And so she's constantly on the go, constantly in her car. And she's learned that by starting her day that way, she doesn't feel as stressed. Because how you start your day and how you is going to affect the entire rest of your day. So if you start rushing the second you get up, you're going to feel rushed and anxious your entire day. So to nourish yourself, how do you want to feel in the mornings? And create time and space for that activity to do that. Especially anyone that has children, if you can get up a half hour before the rest of your family and get to be you before you turn on mom, think how much more nourished you feel. Just to have 30 minutes to yourself. I mean, I can remember when I had small children, I just wanted to go to the bathroom by myself. I mean, I had little fingers under the door, and I was like, can I just go to the bathroom by myself? But if you get up a little bit before everybody else does, it gives you that opportunity to have that time to yourself.
That's beautiful.
And then evening time, again, make sure that you're getting enough sleep. And we're all smart women. We can do the math and say, if I need 7 hours of sleep and I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock, what time do I need to go to bed, right? Do the math, and about a half hour before your bedtime, and we that's a part of compassionate discipline to say, I'm going to be in bed by 10:30 every night. And so maybe about 9:30, 10 o'clock, you turn off the TV, you turn off the iPad, you turn off the computer, you put your cell phone on a charger that is not in your bedroom.
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I have to do that every day.
Yeah, and if you're saying, oh, but I use my cell phone to wake me up, buy a damn alarm clock. They're $10 at Walmart.
Yes.
I mean seriously, buy a regular alarm clock. But do all of those things to shut down and do something nourishing. Maybe it's a cup of tea. Maybe it's sitting and reading, 10 minutes on a book you love. Maybe it's just you want to, wash your face and put on nice moisturizer before you get into your pajamas and do a little reading. Maybe you just want to have a little quiet time with your partner. But do that, make sure all the electronics are off at least a half hour before you go to bed, because our electronics give off a blue light. And the blue light is opposite of what natural sunlight is. And so in ancient times, in the old days, the rising and setting of the sun set our internal body clocks, right? And so all of the blue artificial lights from iPads, our cell phones, our TVs, our laptops emit a blue light, and it signals our body artificially to stay awake. So if you can turn off your electronics a half hour, it gives your body a time to adjust to what's really going on in the world out there. And it's really hard this time of year if you live in the northern hemisphere, because it gets dark about 5 o'clock and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is so early. But I promise that if you'll just do those things off, you don't feel as anxious. Because think how stressful it is to say, oh, more email came in, and you go to bed and you think about the email that you didn't respond to before you went to bed, right? But if you can shut down your computer and set an end time of, say, okay, after 8 o'clock, I'm not going to look at email, or after 9 o'clock, I'm not going to look at Facebook, and apply that to yourself compassionately, and do that, then you're going to be more relaxed. You're going to be able to feel more loved. You're going to be able to feel more nourished. And that's acting out of love. We think we're going to miss something by not being on Facebook, but what are you going to miss between 9 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning that you can't see the next day?
Yes.
So
I just received a note that the computer was going to go off, and I was like, whoa, let me connect this.
Okay.
Let me do this. Okay. So it's good now. Whew. That was a little bit weird. So as I wanted to talk a little bit about, the middle portion of the day. Staying productive. First, I would like to start with setting boundaries, right?
Right.
As business women, sometimes there are certain people that come up to us and want us to deliver for them in the spot. How do you have, those conversations so that you are your most effective, productive self?
Well, I think it begins by, getting in control of your week, and whether you do it, like I plan my weeks weekly. So every Friday I sit down and look at the past week. I'm going to do pencil things in on the calendar. One of the things I pencil in on the calendar is time to write, time to exercise, and things like that, so that I make sure that my needs are met and they're in block. And then when someone calls and says, I look at my calendar and there's a blocked off time, and it doesn't matter what the blocked off time is, it says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available then. However, I can see you, or I can talk to you, I can deliver this product here, right? And so if you don't have an idea of what your schedule is, then it's easier to give into that. Of course I'll do that. Oh, yeah, you want that tomorrow? Sure, sort of thing. But if you get into the habit of planning that time and blocking off those big chunks of time, that helps. Which comes up with another way of managing the productive time of your day. I'm a big fan of block scheduling. So say, you have like a natural energy. Maybe you're most energetic in the mornings, most energetic middays. Put the tasks that are going to require the most energy, the most emotional energy, at your high peak of energy. And then, so you block off. So if your best time of day is 8 o'clock in the morning to noon, whatever takes the most of your energy, block that off the calendar and say, this is for this activity, right? And then when you're best with clients, or when you're best at writing, when you're best at any task that you do for your business. And so do them in blocks. And so return all your phone calls in the same time period. Reply to emails in the same time period. So, maybe you reply to your emails in a scheduled way. Every morning at 9, check it again at 1, and again at 6. And if you put those on your calendar, then you're not constantly distracted. So that's one of the good ways to manage that productive part of the day. And errands is the other thing that gets this, right? And so you say, oh, I'm just going to run to the store. I'm going to run to the office supply store. I got to go to Target. Bulk all your errands on the same day so that once you're out of the house, you get all your errands done, and it doesn't cut into your work time, your productive time. And so by blocking off and saying, well, Tuesdays is my errand day. And it's another good way to say no. Maybe someone has a project that's going to require that you pick up supplies and say, oh, that my supply run day is on Tuesdays. And so I'm not going to get until next Tuesday, but I can deliver it next Wednesday for you. By having those things already in your mind, it's easier to say no and immediately offer a compromise of, hey, I can't do that today, but I can do that on Wednesday. And so by knowing up front what your schedule is, you're better able to manage your time and not feel stressed that you're turning somebody down for something. And most people are reasonable. They will respect your boundaries because they want their boundaries to be respected too. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. There's a thought that came up to me as you were speaking. And it's, what happens when there is a woman that is not used to the world of scheduling? I remember the first time that I had to really look at it. The main reasons why I did it was because it gave me peace of mind. I try to have everything in my mind, and then, as soon as I start to stack up, things start to slip away from my mind. But the main thing here is, how do you, as a beginner in this world, start to follow exactly what you have on your calendar in the same order? Like, what are some good tips that you have so that you start those habits or routines or, yeah?
I think one of the ways to begin that is to run a weekly to-do list. And so I call it a brain dump, of write down everything you want to get done, right? And then after you get it all out of your head, because our minds are meant for having ideas. They're not meant to necessarily remember those ideas. And so when you have it on paper, then you have a list and you can prioritize what's most important. And then if you say, okay, if I just do one thing today that is going to make me proud and happy, what is that going to be? And if you set that priority the night before you go to bed, then it helps keep you on task. So all you have to do is when you go to bed and say, what is the number one thing I want to get done tomorrow? Maybe it's write a chapter of your book. Maybe it's write the bio page for your website. Maybe it's to work on, a pink spoon product for people signing up for your list. And if you set that priority the night before, then it helps keep you on task, right? And then at the end of the week, if you sit down and review, you have that congratulations of, I am very proud of myself because I set a number one priority, and 4 out of 5 days I accomplished it. Yeah. And what that does is that helps you build your confidence around your schedule.
Yeah.
I also like to use paper and the computer. I like the paper because then I don't have to be in front of the computer. But the good thing about the computer is you have the task reminders that can pop up, right? So if you have hardline things like appointments with other people, or a hair appointment or something that is going to require you to interact with other people, having it on that calendar that'll pop up is a good thing, right? But to get away from our computer sometimes, it's good to also have a day planner as a backup and say, what are the, you can take that big to-do list and say, what's my number one priority for the day, and what are like 2 other small tasks I can do today too. And you write those down on the day, and it helps keep you on track when you're used to looking at that paper.
I love that. I think that for me personally, and I would love to know, your own story, like were you always like this organized, like this level of organized, or can you share a little bit? Because
Uh,
sometimes when we start talking about all this, somebody might be like, well, yeah, right, it's easy for you to say, right? But it's always
right, right.
nice to let them know that, hey, we weren't always this way and we keep on learning. So, what was a little bit of your story? What actually got you into being more organized in your life?
Well, I mean, for me, it really started in college. I was always one of those smart kids that I never really had to study a lot, so I never really had to take notes, or I just went to school, and you just go to school and do school, right? When you're in elementary school, middle school, and high school. But when went to college, I did need to study a little bit more, and that's when I first learned how to get organized. And I started learning that I have to write things down. For me to really learn things, I have to write them
Me
down.
too.
And so back in college, I got a spiral notebook for every class, so that I always knew that this was my English class, this was my religion class, and so I had a notebook for each book. And that's how I began to understand the correlation of how I think, which is to learn something, I have to write it down. And that's how I began to take time to write things down. And then when I went into the business world, that's when I transitioned into a paper calendar. Because again, projects expand to the amount of time we have. And we usually wait until the last minute to do them. But I began to understand that for me, I have to break them down and say, for this project, I need to write these 2 chapters this week and this chapter next week. This week I need to edit. Pardon. And so that's how I began, because I am that scatterbrained, kind of ADD person. When I had children, both of my children are ADHD, and the therapist that did our diagnosis process with us said, you are the ADD parent, and because it is a hereditary thing, and I'm like, well, that makes sense to me, because I do get distracted easily, and the only way I stay on task has been to learn to write things down and check my calendar and follow those lists and break big tasks down so that I'm not so overwhelmed. And so that's really how I've learned to do it, because I'm the kid that shoved everything under the bed, and to hide things, and was scatterbrained, and I would be like, oh, look, there's a dog out the window, let's see where he's going, sort of thing. And so to do that, I really had to learn how I think. And for me, that is, I have to write things down. I work well from a list. And to be able to have that list to check off, or to have a plan written down for myself, really helps me. And I do the same thing, like I do a blog for work, and I'll brainstorm ideas for blog topics, so that when I sit down to write, I'm not going, what can I write about today? What can I possibly write about today? And when I get ideas for something to write about, on a news story or something someone says to me, I add it to that blog topic list. And so keeping those kind of lists, and I keep a lot of those in spreadsheets, keeping those kind of lists down for yourself gives you that jumping off ground, so you don't have to start over day and day again. And so that's for me, I was never one of those really organized people. I can remember a lot of things, but I can't remember everything. And by getting into the discipline of writing it down so that I can better remember it, then that means that I'm more productive and I'm more successful.
Yes, exactly. Like you're more productive and you're more successful. I think that when you have so many different ideas in your mind, you're not allowing new ideas to come in, right?
No, and this is what happens with our ideas. Our mind says, oh, I don't want to lose this idea. I don't want to lose this idea. And so we kind of get that idea constipation. But what happens is if you write it down, then your mind relaxes and it says, oh, yeah, that idea is safe. Now, if you're looking at big picture and you have a lot of ideas, let me give you a way to kind of keep those ideas going. On the 25th of every month, I check my idea folder. And I actually have an idea folder for January, February, March. I have an idea folder for every month of the year. And when I have an idea and I think, ooh, that would be something good to write about in January when everyone's trying to, stay on track to their New Year's resolutions. And so I write it down on a note card and drop it in my January file. And then on the 25th or so of the month before, I get in next month's file and I look at all the ideas I have written there. And anything that I want to capture for that month, I pull out and put in my binder. And anything that doesn't work for me, I may put it in March, or I may put it in May. But that way I have an idea folder constantly going, so that every time I have an idea, I write it down like on a note card, drop it in, and then I've got a perpetual idea bank, which is great for my mind because I get to keep having more ideas instead of saying, oh, don't forget this that you wanted to write about in March. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. Exactly. So, yeah, I know what you mean. It's all about, I think it's always about setting yourself up to win. And that sometimes, I mean, clearing space from your mind and keeping
Right.
your to-do list somewhat small. I think there's a point here to talk about being realistic in what you can do in a day.
Right.
Because I see it all the time. Clients tell me, or, women that I talk to is like, oh, like I'm sad because I wasn't able to do this, and the other. But then when we look at what they had planned for the day, it was like literally impossible to fit all of that, right? So,
well,
yeah.
And one of the tricks you may need to do is maybe you need to begin to write a "this is what I got done" list at the end of every day to remind yourself that you are succeeding. You are getting a lot of stuff done, because usually we look at the one thing we didn't get done.
Mm.
Oh, I forgot to bake cupcakes for the Cub Scout bake-off, right? And when really you've got 15 other things done that day. So I think if you start with a few things. One, create a weekly or a monthly to-do list. Every day, take just 3 items and put it on that day's list. And if you get more than 3 items done, you could go back to the big list. But only commit to 3 things a day, with one thing, the number one priority, the one thing you want to get done that next day. And then every evening, go back to that list and say, what 3 things do I want to get done tomorrow? Put them on your list so that when you walk into your office the next morning, that's what your list is. And actually, when you go to bed, your dreams can kind of merge around those ideas, especially that number one priority. Because, our brains work out stuff in our dreams, right? And so that if you go to bed with that number one priority in your mind, then when you get up, you're going to be excited about tackling it and getting to it. But don't put more than 3 things a day to demand of yourself. And if you still feel a little, oh, I didn't get anything done today, say, really? Now, are you sure you didn't get anything done? Write down everything you did from the time you got up until the time you quit the day. Include all those things you do for your family and the things you do for your house and stuff like that. Write them all down and say, that's a lot of stuff. I got a lot of stuff done today. And so it begins to train your mind to congratulate and celebrate your accomplishments instead of looking at your lacks.
Yeah, I do that every night before I go to sleep. I always say, so what am I proud of that I did today? I celebrate myself because that puts me in a different energy. Here's a question, and I can't believe it. I was about to forget this. It's about resistance. What happens if you're noticing that there's something in your calendar or in your to-do list that you have been avoiding in any shape or form? Is there a reason for that?
Well, there's a couple reasons for that. The first thing is maybe it's something that's not really yours. Like, maybe you want to write a book because you think it would make your mom proud, but you don't like writing. Or maybe a coach says, if you'd write a book and put it up on Amazon, that would really increase your visibility. But you don't like to write, and it doesn't feel good to you. It doesn't feel like a good goal. And so you're going to procrastinate on it because it doesn't really meet your soul's journey. It's not your goal. It's somebody else's goal that they put on you, or an idea that they put in your head, or something that you thought would make somebody else happy. That's one reason we resist. The other reason we resist is because we're afraid of what will happen if we do it. We're afraid of being successful. Because even if we're successful, which is a good thing, it means that something in our life is going to change. Who are we if we're not that aspiring writer, but we're actually an author? What does that mean? Are people going to think that we're going to get snooty? What is that going to do to our relationships? What are people going to think? If I really write what I want to write, what are people going to think about me? Oh, God, what are they going to think about me? Right? And so that's the other thing for resistance. And it's just, It's really about befriending that fear and saying, you know what? Let's just give it a try. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just give it a little try. And the other thing you can do is play with a timer in your resistance and say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes working on this. Just 30 minutes. And likely, if you get into it and you have the time in your schedule, you can go further. But committing to just saying 30 minutes. Or like I was talking to a girlfriend yesterday that she coached too, and she said, I wanted to do some work in my closet, and I knew 10 minutes wasn't enough, and 15 minutes felt too. So I set my timer for 12 minutes and went and did 12 minutes of work in my closet. And so those things that we resist, if we just say, okay, I'm not going to ask you to do this all day. What if you just do 15 minutes? Just 15 minutes. See how you feel after that. It's one of those ways to begin to like befriend that resistance, to lean into that fear, be a little bit brave, but not have to say, I'm going to kick fear's butt today. You know, it's that gentle way of saying, hey, it's okay to be a little afraid. Just work 15 minutes on this. Just 15 minutes. That's all I ask. And then 15 minutes is done, you know, especially if it's something really challenging. Like I've been working on my memoir, and it's bringing up a lot of my stuff from, you know, my first marriage and stuff with my mom. And so I set a reward at the end of the day of what I reward myself with if I you know, spend that 15 minutes or that 30 minutes working on that project. So set up some rewards. Maybe it's, hey, after I do this, I'm going to call my friend Casey and see where she is on her project. Or after I do this, I'm going to, you know, go for a walk around the block. Or I'm going to go get a coffee. Or if I spend 15 minutes a day, and Friday I'm going to go get a manicure. So work rewards into that resistance, especially if you notice something that you just keep edging from. That's if it's yours. If it's not yours, you know, maybe it doesn't need to be yours. So if you're only writing a book because a coach tells you that you should write a book so that you can be more known, but you don't want to write a book, then don't write a book. You know, find that sweet spot, that middle ground of if it's not a goal for you, if it's not really your soul's goal, it's not going to allow you to feel the way you desire to feel, then it really isn't your goal. It really isn't your idea. It's somebody else's, right? But if it is your soul, let your soul have its say, even if it's only for 15 minutes.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. I mean, I think you touched all the points. There's one thing that we haven't talked about, and you mentioned it a little bit, you know, making sure you feel good. Let's talk about, you know, adding to your calendar, you know, time for fun and feeling good, right? Isn't that
Right.
sometimes, yeah, what can we do there? Because I truly believe that when you're feeling good, that's when you get more creative, you know, your body relaxes. So yeah, I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to have that downtime. We have to have that play. And so one of the things to say is, you know, cut a time a day when you are going to walk away from your desk every day. It's especially hard if you work at home because it's so easy to keep your email open and keep peeking at it and that sort of stuff. You know, schedule things with someone that you know is going to help you have. So maybe you schedule lunch with a girlfriend, or maybe you schedule to go for a hike with another friend. So if you have somebody else that you're accountable to show up for, that'll help you begin to set in your mind, hey, it's okay to go play. It's okay to have fun. You know, maybe you want to read more, so maybe you join a book club so that you make time to finish a book. Think of ways that you can begin, in the beginning at least, to say, I want to have more fun, but I don't know how to relax. What can I do to make that happen? And it usually starts with accountability to someone else, right? And so that's the first place to start. The other thing is, you know, actually mark off the time in your calendar. You know, schedule things that are going to force you out of the house, even if it's just to go to Starbucks and read a book, you know. Maybe you say at 2 o'clock in the afternoon every Wednesday, I'm going to leave the house. I'm going to go to Starbucks and have coffee and read a book. And then when I'm done with my coffee, then I'll get back in my car and I'll run by the grocery store and pick up my groceries and then come back home. So build something pleasurable in the first part of needing to, do something necessary like grocery shopping, but still get you out of the house where it's fun, where you can people watch, where you can enjoy your book, where you can really relax and move into the beginning of that and transition. We need that transition. And it is important that we have that pleasure. And make sure that if if you're in a relationship, make sure that, you have a date night, or make sure that every evening you sit down to dinner together. Or, like John and I, what we do is when he comes home from work, he gets out of his suit and changes out of his dress shoes and puts his slippers on, and we get a glass of wine. And, in the winter, we sit in here with the fireplace and we talk about the day. We enjoy sharing the details of the day and what we've done and what's been a challenge or what's been good. And then I go upstairs and make dinner. And he relaxes by playing Xbox or something like that. Or we play chess. We have a constant chess game going. And so maybe that's something that would be fun. Maybe you set up a board game. And instead of sitting to go through the board game, as a family, everybody makes one move a day, 2 moves a day. And something like that can remind you to have fun. So the chessboard out always reminds me, we have a game going.
Yes.
Right?
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I know that everyone has several ideas that they can start implementing in their day-to-day life, because more than anything is about feeling good in the process and letting your mind off so that you can just be happy. And I want to thank you again. This was great.
Sure.
And I know that you have a gift for the audience, so if you could share a little bit about that, that would be great.
Right. I'm going to be sharing my gift about how to choose your word for the year. And not only choose your word, and by choosing a word of, for the last decade, I've chosen a word as kind of like my theme for the year. And so anytime I have a big decision to make, I say, is that going to fit my word? So like for 2010, for example, my word was faith. And so everything I did, I said, okay, I'm going to trust in myself. I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to have faith. I'm just going to have faith. And it allowed me to take bigger chances than I thought. So I'm going to share my guide on how to choose your word, and not only choosing your word, but how to follow your desire. So you'll close out your year, think about what you desire for the coming year, and then choose a word for that. And so it's a workbook, and I'll be sharing it for everybody who wants it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this interview. Thank you again, Debra. This was amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate you asking. This has been fun.
It was. So thanks, everyone, and I will be seeing you very soon.